My girlfriend used my savings to travel with another guy. So I sold everything left behind and moved abroad without a trace or regret. I'm a 29-year-old guy, and for the longest time, I believed that love meant building a future together, even if it meant breaking yourself piece by piece to make it happen. I thought saving for our future meant something. For 4 years, I worked double shifts, picked up weekend freelancing, and lived off instant noodles so my girlfriend, Chloe, and I could start a real life, a house, a wedding, maybe a kid someday. Every time exhaustion hit me like a brick, I'd picture her smile. She'd sit beside me while I typed late into the night, tracing her finger along my arm and whispering, "You're my rock." One day, we'll look back at this and laugh about how broke we were. Those words kept me going. They made every sleepless night feel like an investment, not in a bank, but in love. Our dream fund, that's what we called it. A joint account we promised to never touch except for our future. I handled most of the saving. Chloe was still paying off a few small debts, or at least, that's what she told me. She'd text me during my night shifts, saying, "You're working too hard for us. I'll make it up to you one day." I believed her blindly, but over time, something shifted. She started spending more time on her phone, obsessed with travel influencers, luxury brands, and soft life content. She'd scroll for hours, sighing, "They're living the life I want." I laughed it off, thinking everyone dreams big sometimes. But soon, the comments she made started to sting. "You know, we can't work ourselves to death forever. Some people just take risks and live." I didn't realize then, those words weren't just harmless fantasies. They were a warning I completely ignored, and if I had paid attention, maybe I would have seen what she was really planning behind that perfect smile. It started small, little things that didn't make sense at first. Chloe used to text me nonstop during my shifts, asking how my night was going, sending pictures of her dinner, her cat, or random memes. Then suddenly, the messages slowed down. When I'd ask where she'd been, she'd say, "Just busy, babe. Work's been crazy." She started talking about her coworker nights out more often. I wanted her to have fun, so I didn't think much of it until one night. She came home smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. I asked, half joking, "Who's the lucky guy wearing that scent?" She laughed too quickly. "Relax, it's probably from hugging people goodbye." I tried to brush it off, but something in her tone felt rehearsed. I kept working, trying to drown the growing unease with overtime. Every paycheck, I transferred more into our dream fund, hoping money could buy us the peace we were losing. Meanwhile, Chloe's focus shifted entirely. She started dressing differently, buying new outfits, and obsessing over how Instagram-worthy her life looked. I'd catch her scrolling through a photographer's profile, a guy named Eric liking every shot. One evening, I asked, "Who's Eric? You mention him a lot lately." She paused before replying, "Oh, just a coworker. He's helping me with content ideas." Something about how easily that rolled off her tongue made my stomach twist. That night, while she showered, I saw a message pop up on her phone. "Eric, can't wait for the weekend. Just you and me. No stress." I froze. My heart pounded, but I didn't open it. I couldn't. Instead, I sat there, staring at our framed photo on the wall, the one we took the day we opened our joint account. I told myself there had to be an explanation, but deep down I already knew. Love doesn't vanish overnight. It fades slowly, replaced by secrets you're too afraid to face. The morning it happened felt ordinary sunlight cutting through the blinds, the smell of burnt coffee, and Chloe humming in the shower. I remember checking my bank app like I always did before work, just to see the dream fund grow a little more. Except this time, the number didn't grow. It was gone. Over $18,000 vanished. My chest tightened. I refreshed the page, thinking it was a glitch. But it wasn't. The withdrawal was clear, processed overnight, transferred to another account. Chloe's account. I called her immediately. No answer. I texted, "Where's the money? Please tell me this is a mistake." Silence. Hours crawled by like days. I couldn't work, couldn't think. That evening, she finally replied with a single line, "It's temporary. I'll explain later." My fingers trembled as I typed. "Explain what, Chloe? You drained everything we saved." But she didn't respond again. That night, I opened Instagram just to numb my thoughts, and that's when I saw it. A story from Chloe's account. A video of her laughing, holding champagne at an airport, boarding a plane with Eric. The caption read, "New adventures with amazing company." I felt the world tilt. My breath turned shallow. Every sacrifice, every late night, every broken piece of myself that built that fund, it was now fueling her vacation. The comments beneath the post were filled with heart emojis and couple goals. None of them knew that the man behind the camera wasn't me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, staring at my reflection in the dark screen, realizing I'd become invisible in my own story. And as I closed the app, one thought repeated in my head: if she could steal my dreams so easily, maybe it was time I learned how to disappear too. In the days that followed, humiliation became my new routine. Friends started texting me screenshots of Chloe's posts, her on beaches, candlelit dinners, ocean view rooms, all funded by the same money I worked myself sick to save. Every picture cut deeper. She didn't even hide it. She tagged Eric in every post. At first, I didn't respond to anyone. I couldn't, but word spread fast in our small town. People whispered that I'd been played, that I let her use me. One guy from work even joked, "Man, next time, keep your wallet in a safe." I laughed along just to stop my hands from shaking. Inside, I felt hollow, like my entire identity had been turned into a joke. My mom called after hearing the gossip. She said, "Honey, she's young. Maybe she made a mistake. Don't throw away love over one bad decision." I remember whispering, "Mom, she stole everything." She sighed and said softly, "Money can be replaced. People can't." But what no one seemed to understand was that it wasn't about the money. It was the betrayal, watching the person you trusted most build their joy out of your pain. Chloe didn't reach out once. Not a message, not an apology. Just more pictures, more smiles. The girl who used to cry because she couldn't afford rent now posed with champagne. Flutes and hashtags like #living my best life. One night, I stared at the framed photo of us on my desk, the one where she held my hand and said, "We're in this together." I picked it up, turned it face down, and sat there in silence. That was the night something inside me cracked, not just from heartbreak, but from the quiet rage of realizing everyone had seen my humiliation before. I could even understand it myself. I didn't recognize myself anymore. The guy who once woke up early, hustled through double shifts, and dreamed of a shared future was now a shell, sitting in the dark, replaying every lie Chloe ever told me. I stopped eating. I stopped answering calls. The sound of my phone vibrating made my stomach twist because deep down, I kept hoping it was her. Some kind of explanation, an apology, anything. Weeks passed before she finally texted, "Can we talk?" My heart jumped before my brain caught up. She came over that night, suitcase in hand, acting casual, like she hadn't destroyed my life. She said, "My lease ended and Eric turned out to be a jerk. I just need a place to crash until I figure things out." I stared at her, speechless. She added softly, "I know I hurt you, but you're not the type to hold grudges, right?" For a second, I actually considered saying yes. I was so desperate for closure, for something that made sense. So I let her stay, telling myself it was temporary, that I'd at least get the truth. But the truth came in the worst possible way. One night, while she thought I was asleep, I overheard her on the phone with a friend, laughing. Of course, he took me back. He always does. Men like him are too easy. Guilt and loyalty make them stupid. Her words hit harder than anything Eric ever did. My chest went numb. I didn't confront her. I didn't even move. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, realizing I wasn't her partner. I was her backup plan. That was my rock bottom. The point where love stopped feeling like love and started feeling like poison. And in that silence, a new part of me was born. The part that no longer wanted answers. Only escape. Something inside me snapped that night, not in anger, but in clarity. I didn't confront Chloe. I didn't throw her out or demand the money back. I just went quiet. For the first time, I stopped reacting and started watching. Every move she made, every call, every smirk, I memorized it all. She thought I was broken. She'd smile and say things like, "I'm glad we can be civil," while scrolling through her phone, probably texting Eric or whoever came next. I'd nod, pretending to listen, while my mind worked like clockwork behind the silence. I wasn't going to beg anymore. I wasn't going to cry or shout. I was going to disappear at work. I started selling my things discreetly. My car went first, then the gaming setup she used to brag about online. I told friends I was downsizing. In reality, every dollar I made went into a separate account, one she didn't know existed. I started researching places overseas, cities where no one would ask questions, where a man could start over without a past hanging off his shoulders. At night, while she slept in my bed, I'd sit on the balcony scrolling through photos of Lisbon, Bali, and Prague. Each image felt like oxygen, freedom, a life without her shadow. Sometimes she'd wake up and ask, "You okay?" I'd smile faintly and say, "Yeah, just thinking." She'd roll over and mumble, "You think too much." She had no idea those thoughts were the blueprint for my escape. Every word she spoke only fueled my quiet resolve. For years, I worked to build a future for us. Now, for the first time, I was working to build a future away from her, and if my plan worked, she'd wake up one morning to realize the same thing I did, that I was gone, and this time, I wasn't coming back. The week I decided to leave, everything felt eerily calm, like the quiet before a storm only I knew was coming. Chloe still floated around the apartment like she owned it, humming, using my Netflix account, ordering food with my saved card. But I stopped caring. I stopped reacting. She mistook my silence for forgiveness. In truth, it was preparation. I'd already sold everything worth keeping. My furniture went to a coworker. My car, gone. Even the apartment lease. I ended it quietly, paying the penalty just to ensure I could leave without notice. My remaining things fit into one suitcase. That was the point, to make it easy to disappear. Every night. While Chloe went out with friends, I organized files, deleted social media, then transferred the last bit of money to my new account. I changed my number, canceled subscriptions, wiped my laptop. Piece by piece, I erased myself from the life she thought she controlled. The night before I left, she stumbled in drunk around 2 a.m., laughing into her phone. She didn't notice the half-empty apartment or the missing photo frames. I just watched her walk by, this stranger wearing the same face I once loved. When she finally passed out, I left a single note on the pillow beside her. "You took my dreams. I'm taking my freedom." I grabbed my suitcase, closed the door, and walked down the empty hallway. My heart raced, but not from fear, from relief. I didn't look back. Not once. By sunrise, I was gone. No trace, no forwarding address, no social media trail. Just silence. For the first time in years, I wasn't working toward someone else's happiness. I was walking toward my own, and I didn't owe her or anyone a single explanation. When the plane touched down in Lisbon, I felt something I hadn't in years. Nothing. No excitement, no sadness, just an empty kind of peace. It was strange at first, waking up in a city where no one knew my name, where every street felt like a reset button. I rented a small apartment near the coast, cracked walls, squeaky floors, and sunlight that filled the room like forgiveness. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The first few weeks were quiet. Too quiet. I'd wake up expecting to hear Chloe's voice or the ping of her phone, but all I heard was the ocean outside my window. At night, I'd sit on the balcony with cheap wine, staring at the streetlights flickering below, wondering if she'd noticed I was gone yet, or if she even cared. Work came slowly. I started freelancing again, writing code for small companies. The routine helped. So did the anonymity. I could walk for hours through narrow alleys, lose myself in the crowd, and feel the weight of my past fade with each step. For once, I didn't have to explain anything. No one knew what I'd lost, and I preferred it that way. But sometimes, when I'd see couples laughing at cafes or travelers taking selfies by the river, a quiet ache would creep in. Not because I missed her, but because I realized how much of myself I'd given to someone who never deserved it. Still, every sunrise over the Tagus River reminded me that healing doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it arrives quietly, like the tide returning to shore, washing away what's left of who you used to be, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel trapped by my past. I felt free to exist even if no one knew I was gone. Months passed before I heard anything about Chloe again. By then, Lisbon had become home. I had a morning routine, coffee from the same corner cafe, long walks along the pier, and quiet evenings spent coding or watching the sunset stain the sky orange. I didn't check social media anymore, but one night, curiosity got the better of me. Against my better judgment, I searched her name. Her once perfect Instagram feed was different now. Gone were the beach trips and champagne dinners. In their place were cryptic quotes about self-growth and being betrayed by people you trust. The irony almost made me laugh. I scrolled deeper. Photos with Eric had vanished completely. A mutual friend messaged me a few days later. "You heard about Chloe? Eric dumped her. Apparently, he used her for money and clout, then ghosted." I didn't respond, but I felt something coldly satisfying settle in my chest. Karma wasn't instant, but it always arrived. Word spread that she was broke, jobless, desperate, and trying to convince everyone that I stole our joint savings before running away. But the truth had already leaked. People remembered who worked the overtime shifts, who sacrificed weekends, who funded that dream fund in the first place. Her narrative crumbled fast. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post cryptic quotes or gloat. I just took another sip of my coffee, looking out over the Atlantic, thinking about how different peace felt from revenge. But somewhere deep inside, a part of me still wondered if she'd try to find me. If she'd wake up one morning realizing what she'd lost, not the money, but the person who actually gave a damn. I didn't know it yet. But the answer to that question was coming in the form of one message that would arrive months later, breaking my silence all over again. It was a rainy evening in Lisbon when it happened, the kind of night that makes the city glow gold under streetlights. I was halfway through a project deadline when an old notification tone echoed from my laptop. It was an email from an address I hadn't seen in almost a year. Subject: please. My pulse quickened before I even opened it. There it was, Chloe. The message was long, messy, desperate. She wrote that Eric had betrayed her, that he'd used her for connections, drained what little she had left, and left her stranded. She said she'd been depressed, lonely, and thinking about the only person who ever truly cared. Every sentence was soaked in self-pity, not remorse. "I know I hurt you, but I didn't mean to. I just lost myself. You always made me feel safe, and now I realize what I threw away. Can we talk?" Maybe start over somewhere new. I read it 3 times, each one slower than the last. For a brief moment, I felt that familiar ache, the echo of the man who once wanted to fix everything. But then I looked around my apartment. The plants I kept alive, the photos I'd taken, the life I'd rebuilt from the ashes she left. Everything around me existed because she wasn't in it. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I could have written something cruel, something final. But instead, I did nothing. No reply, no closure, just silence. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say to someone who destroyed you is nothing at all. I closed the laptop, poured myself a drink, and sat by the window, watching the rain hit the glass. For the first time in years, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I just felt done. After I ignored Chloe's email, days turned into weeks, and then months. The silence felt strange at first, almost heavy, like a ghost lingering in the corner of my new life. But eventually, it became freedom. Every day without her words, her noise. Her manipulation felt like another step toward reclaiming myself. Started to notice small things again. The smell of fresh coffee in the mornings. The sound of seagulls at dawn. The warmth of sunlight through my window. Simple things that used to pass me by when my life revolved around her chaos. Healing didn't arrive as some cinematic revelation. It came quietly, like the tide creeping back after a storm. Sometimes, I'd still think about her, not with anger, but with distance. I realized the pain she caused wasn't because she left. It was because I'd built my entire sense of worth around keeping her happy. She didn't just take my money. She took the version of me that believed love meant self-sacrifice. One evening, while watching the ocean from a cliffside cafe, I found myself smiling, not because I was over her, but because I was finally over us. I didn't need an apology or revenge anymore. I'd already won in the quietest way possible, by moving on without ever needing her. Acknowledgement, I deleted her email permanently that night. No trace, no draft, no curiosity to reread it. And as the screen went black, I whispered something I hadn't said in years. Thank you for leaving. Because if she hadn't, I might have never learned what peace actually felt like. But peace has a funny way of testing you. Because just when I thought the past was buried for good, it found one last way to reach me. Almost a year after I vanished, I saw her name again. Not in my inbox this time, but trending on social media. A mutual friend sent me a link to a video titled, "My Side of the Story, How I Lost Everything." Against my better judgment, I clicked. There she was, Chloe, sitting in a dimly lit room, tears smudging her mascara, voice trembling for the camera. She talked about betrayal, heartbreak, how she'd been used and abandoned. She never mentioned my name, but her story was clear enough. She painted herself as the victim, the one who trusted too easily. The comments were full of sympathy, people calling her strong, brave, misunderstood. I should have been angry. I should have wanted to expose her lies. But instead, I just sat there, watching with a strange calm. Every lie she told was another reminder of how far I'd come, how far she hadn't. She was still living in performance, still chasing attention. While I'd learned to live quietly in truth, I closed the video halfway through and walked outside. The Lisbon air was cool and clean, the kind that smells faintly of salt and possibility. Down the street, a street performer played a soft tune on a guitar. I bought a pastry, took a seat near the water, and watched the world move on without her, without the noise as the sun dipped below the horizon. I realized something simple but profound. I didn't need to prove I'd survived. My life itself was proof. I pulled out my phone, opened a blank note, and wrote the final line of my story. Not for her, not for anyone. Just for me. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's living a life they'll never find again. Then I closed the phone, took a deep breath, and smiled. For the first time in years, I wasn't running away. I was already home.